Why do we need versioning? Imagine you're working on a customer segmentation project. The first model to cluster the customers was built years ago. Who created the first workflow? What did the first version look like? If you have a new idea, how can you inform your team about the changes you make? To answer these questions, KNIME Server has a feature called versioning. Here you can see a customer segmentation workflow stored on KNIME Server. The workflow generates statistics and graphs that describe the customers in the data set. We start by reading the data. Then we do some pre-processing and we cluster the data. In the last step, we assign each cluster a colour and visualise the results, as shown in this interactive composite view. This workflow was built in phases, shared among various team members. The first phase or task was to calculate the clusters, the second to build the interactive views. Finally, some of the graphs were replaced and some clustering parameters were changed. So how do we check previous versions? Managing such a shared project is easier when changes are recorded in chronological order. This means that every time the workflow is updated, the previous version is stored as a snapshot. We call this versioning, and it's one of the features of KNIME Server that enhance collaboration. This function allows you to create a history of workflows, data files, and components. Let's take a look at the earlier versions or snapshots of this workflow. We right-click the workflow in the KNIME Explorer and select Show History in the menu. Now, the Server History view appears here in the bottom right corner, and it lists the different snapshots of the workflow. These snapshots show the different states of the workflow. Each snapshot is identified by a timestamp, creator, and possibly a comment. When we select a snapshot in the list, the toolbar here at the top is activated. Use the first icon if you want to refresh the list of snapshots. The next icon, the red cross, deletes the selected snapshot. The green arrow replaces the current version of the workflow with the selected snapshot. The yellow icon on the right is for downloading the snapshot as a workflow to your local workspace. Let's download this snapshot, the latest version of the customer segmentation workflow, to our local workspace. How do we create a new snapshot? If we right-click the workflow here in the local workspace, you'll see there's no Show History option in the menu. So, to update the shared workflow, we can change the latest version of the workflow in the local workspace and then re-upload the workflow to KNIME Server. Now we want to apply some changes to the workflow and create a new snapshot. We open it and change the number of clusters to 10 instead of 3, for example. Next, after reconfiguring it locally, we deploy the workflow to KNIME Server again. A dialog opens, asking if we want to overwrite the existing workflow, save it with a new name, or create a snapshot before we overwrite. Let's first create a snapshot of the previous workflow by activating the checkbox Create Snapshot before overwriting. We write a comment about the snapshot, 3 clusters for example. Now, as you can see, this newly created snapshot appears here in the Server History view. We can also create a snapshot of a workflow on KNIME Server by right-clicking it and selecting Create Snapshot in the menu. Notice that you need writing permissions for the workflow to create a snapshot of it. Let's check next what happens to the server history if we don't create a snapshot before overwriting a workflow. We do exactly the same as before. Deploy this workflow stored locally to KNIME Server, but this time we disable the option Create Snapshot before overwriting. Now in the Server History view, you can see that the item was overwritten, but its history was not. Put another way, when we overwrite an item without creating a snapshot, we only discard the latest version of it. In this video, we've shown you how to inspect the previous versions of a workflow on KNIME Server in the Server History view. The previous states are available as snapshots that can be restored and also downloaded to the local workspace. A snapshot can be created before overwriting a workflow or by selecting Create Snapshot in the right-click menu of a workflow in the KNIME Explorer. Notice that here we have shown how versioning works by creating snapshots based on the example of a workflow. Snapshots can also be created in the same way as any components and data files stored on KNIME Server.